Hey, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all doing okay. It's Lauretta here, and today I'll be talking about jealousy. Anger is cruel and fury overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? The reason I've decided to do this video is because this topic has been on my heart lately. It's been about 10 months, but I'm glad we're finally getting around to do this. So there's so much shame attached to it and very few resources to help support the victims. So for example, look at this image or these words that have been on social media for about 2 years, at least from the time that I started seeing it. If you feel jealous whenever you see people progressing, just put your hand on your chest and say, I'm a witch, deliver me, Lord. First of all, why are victims being called witches? I know some of this is banter, but let's be real. You and I know that these words are being meant by whoever is saying them, period. Funny enough, there isn't one for the wizards, but then I'll leave it at that. All right, do not come for me. So most of the resources that are online are bashing jealous people. Videos titled like 10 ways to know friends are jealous of you, or cutting off jealous friends. All these resources do not help. To some extent they do, but then imagine all we did was cut off jealous people. Very soon everyone is going to be cut off. Not everyone, but most of us will be cut off. Let's be real. So I think it's important that we help each other out. We are all members of the body of Christ, and if one part suffers, all the other parts suffer with it. If one part is honored, all the other parts rejoice with it. And so if we help each other improve character, then we're going to be happy for the other person because they're better people. I hope we won't be jealous of them, We'll be happy for them because they'll have become better people, and God has endowed us differently for his purposes. Yes, so what is jealousy? These are feelings or thoughts from insecurity, fear, or even concern that arise from a relative lack of possession. They could consist of one or more emotions such as anger, resentment, disgust, or inadequacy. Clearly, looking at all these emotions, you can tell that jealousy is so devastating, and the sad truth is we're all susceptible to it simply because we're human. It is so deadly. It can not only hurt our personal relationships, but also our health physically, mentally, and emotionally. There's this verse that I got from James chapter 3, that's verse 16. For where you have envy and self-ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. Listen, so jealousy is here, right? And you've got all these little evil practices under it. And so if you've got jealousy, you've got all these different, ones. And it is, I don't know, it's frustrating when you've got it and all you find on the internet is a bash. Does that even make sense? I don't know. Yeah, but right. So what I'm going to focus on today is the feeling of inadequacy, which is maybe more common, I think, in our close circles, so in our families or friends. So first of all, let us agree, while using the internet, we spend much time viewing other people's lives. I feel like you should not disagree with me because I'm telling the truth. Deep down in your heart. We spend a lot of time, following people's lives. This is the thing. On a normal day, if I update my WhatsApp status, I could have about 100 views, right? Some people have way more, others have less. But if we reverse that, if it's me, looking at 100 people's lives on a daily, if they've all updated their statuses, showing maybe, and the funny thing is, we all put our best on the internet. Let's be real, we all put our best, and if you think what I put is not my best, please, I'm sorry, that is my best, okay? That is my best. So we're looking at people's best because we know that we put our best. I don't know why our brains do not tell us that that's their best. We're thinking, oh, that's all they're getting after they've not got any issues, and all these emotions processing in our heads create weird feelings, So, for example, you could have maybe, you could have wanted to try out something and you've tried it and it's not working, and then you're viewing your statuses and you see for someone else it's worked out, and so you start to feel like, how come for me it didn't work out? Thinking, oh, life is so unfair, what? And sometimes we can do without these things. We just want them, but we don't really need them. And so we end up getting this feeling of inadequacy, thinking, oh, I should have had it. And then we start to look at the other party with like opposition. We feel like, we start to hate them, because they've got something we've always wanted and we haven't got it, which I think is a sad thing, because we'll see later on the cure. We'll be able to understand why that is sad. Now, this feeling can be a positive one because it can show you that, for me, sometimes when I see people have done certain things and I'm struggling to do them, I get hope, because I'm like, if they've done it, I can do it in like a positive manner, because I get encouraged. But then if we do not use this feeling in that aspect, then we're going to end up landing in jealousy, which we don't want to. So I'll share a personal story. I remember earlier this year, 2020, I was viewing my statuses, and when I arrived at this specific one, my heart skipped a bit. Now, I didn't pay much attention to it because I thought it's okay, like there's nothing going on, so why should I even be bothered? But after a couple of weeks, we were having a discussion on Sabbath, and in that discussion, we saw that these people were jealous of the main guy, right? And like the traits they gave, they were just cutting deep down in my heart. I'm like, what's happening to me? I'm like, wait, what's happening? So I sat down and reflected on my life, And for some reason, all this information that I got from that discussion took me back to the time when I did that specific status. And I was like, oh, wait, do not tell me I'm jealous of this person. Please, Lord, do not. Anyway, I came to the conclusion that I was. Funny enough, what they want, I didn't. What they had, I didn't want. Or I didn't even need. Even up to now, I don't need it. I don't want it. But why I was jealous is beyond me. Like, I also don't understand. This is the funny thing, This is the funny thing. I don't really understand. But I think when you get down to some of the root causes, we'll be able to understand why this happened to me. Sometimes we've got our friends or relatives, and they could perceive us a certain way. They start making phrases like, oh, I think you're, some relatives, when they see some men making certain amount of money, you've bought a brand new car, you're now pulling up, in that German car, and they're like, hey, I think you should get a wife. Or they'll be like, now living in this area, I think you should get this certain phone because they're the cool phones there. And all these phrases are registered in our minds, and they start to tell us that we need these things. Sometimes we're not even ready to get whatever they're talking about, And I think sometimes it's important for us to mind our own business, guys. Please let us mind our own business, all right? So sometimes we don't really need these things, and then we tend to focus on their phrases. And knowing that you've got those phrases in your head or your heart, you're viewing post statuses, you've seen this people have got. Maybe, for example, that guy, he's been told he needs to get a wife, right? Now he's viewing on Instagram, he opens, all he sees is wedding pictures, engagement pictures, and then, you go in your status, that's all you see. And deep down, you start to feel like you need these things, so it creates this feeling of inadequacy within you. And this is where the problem comes in. You do not need it, but now you feel like you need it. And just like that, jealousy hits you. Right, so we're going to look at a Bible story, which is in Genesis chapter 37 and also chapter 50. And it's about Joseph. Joseph was one of Jacob's sons, or Israel, whichever name you call him. He's the same person. And he was the 12th son, or 12th child, actually. And then he had Benjamin below him, right? But he was first of the other wife, Rachel. So we know that Jacob loved Joseph so much. It was unreal. And so the brothers started to envy him, They actually started with hatred. And Joseph had all these dreams. Well, they talk about, I think, 2 dreams that he told the brothers. The first dream, he tells them, and they say that he'll be there. That one time they'll have to bow down to him, or he'll be their ruler. And they're thinking, oh, Christ Almighty, this cannot be happening to us. I would imagine in a typical African home, or Ugandan home to be specific, this last born coming up and saying they'll be a ruler as the other children. Imagine you're like, 13 children, and this last born is on coming up, not like it was the last born, but he was on second to the last, so coming up, and he's like, I'll be a ruler. Like, all the kids will be like, oh, what do you mean, please? Like, what do you mean you'll be a ruler? And so they started to envy him. And then he gets this other dream. Sometimes I'm like, why was he even telling them the dreams? But anyway, maybe he had to. So he told them the dream, and then they hated him more. And of course, the dad loved him a lot. So all that mixed together, these guys became jealous of him. And so they planned to get rid of him. They were so determined to kill him, and also had planned to erase the evidence that they would have killed him. After a number of discussions among themselves, the brothers, they decided to sell him off. And still, they used false evidence while bearing the news to their father. These guys didn't even care what the father would feel like. They only cared about their souls. And I think it shows us the selfishness in jealousy. And maybe sometimes we haven't got to the extent of killing others, but we need to watch out, because honestly, human beings are capable of anything. And the thing is, we've seen different families I've seen on YouTube and news, whereby someone has been killed because of a certain possession they had. Maybe they had land or they had a car, and excuse me, they've been killed because of that. So human beings are capable of anything, So I would urge you to take time out and read that whole story. And if you've got anything that stood out to you, please leave something in the comment section. Thank you. Right, so we're gonna dive into the cure. So there are 3 things that I put together to help us cure jealousy, and I hope they will help all of us. Right, the first one is rejoice with your friends and family members if they achieve something, and this is where the love comes in, because once you've got the love, then the jealousy will not come. It won't even happen. So rejoice. Let us not fake the rejoicing. I know sometimes that fake it until you make it, maybe, but let us be genuine. Let us rejoice with others for their achievement. And I saw this from the poster Father Mwebembezi had made. He gives an example of Elizabeth and Mary. So these 2 are cousins, and Mary was going to bear Jesus, and Elizabeth, John the Baptist. Now, Elizabeth did not care that Jesus would be in a higher position than John the Baptist, but she rejoiced when Mary came to visit her. She said, I am filled with great joy that the mother of our Lord will visit me, that phrase. I'm just paraphrasing it. She said that, and it just shows you she rejoiced with Mary, when Mary brought the good news. One thing that stood out to me, though, was the fact that she was filled with the Holy Spirit. And I think we shouldn't undermine the role of the Holy Spirit in our lives. If we allow it to work in us, then we're going to bear the fruits of the Spirit. So that whole story of Mary and Elizabeth can be found in Luke chapter 1 from verses 39 to 45, if you want to have a read through. And secondly, we should guard our hearts. If anything, this should have come first. I feel like it's such a broad topic, but then it's also very interesting how it works, I believe I won't be able to exhaust it, but I'll try. What? Not an English. So if I say any of these words wrong, just forgive me. Yeah, so Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now here, heart means our thought life and emotions, the things that motivate us and mold us into what we become or what we are. If you know that you're consuming so much social media and it's destroying you, reduce the amount of time you spend on it. If it means deleting your account, go and do it. You're doing it for yourself. And these things are in your control, and they determine much of what you think of, Our thoughts control our attitudes, and then our attitudes influence our actions, and this will lead to our achievements, Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, for as he thinketh, so is he. For sure, God has got the power to change our thoughts, but it's only possible if we let God. In Romans 12 verses 2, we're told that we should, we should not conform to the pattern of this world, but we should be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Then we'll be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So if we present our mind to him, and sometimes it is hard, because when you hear me saying these things, you're like, hey, Lauretta, hold it out. I know. I do have these struggles as well. But if we keep on affirming ourselves with these words, then it's going to become easier for us to get through this process. Do you understand? And I think this verse is so beautiful. So we should present our minds to him. And when we allow God in our heart, we will think right, live right, and we shall do right. An interesting fact, I read a blog by Susan Blackmore at Psychology Today, and I found an interesting fact. So basically, we cannot have two thoughts at once. We can only think about one thing. And I've put all this together in one document, and hopefully in the future I'll be able to share it. I mean, if you want it, you can message me and I can send to you everything that I've put together for this video, and then you'll be able to get all the detailed information. Yes, so we at least we know that when we occupy our thoughts with something else, then these negative feelings are not going to creep into our lives, you get. And lastly, let us be grateful. Listen, gratitude brings about contentment, and it definitely gets about envy. It makes you realize that God has given you much more than you deserve. With gratitude, you focus on what you've got and not what you feel like you need or lack. If you practice meditating on the good things that you've achieved, it's just going to be your benefit. It's going to work out good for you. And I've got friends who say they started this habit and it's been like a blessing for them, whereby they would write down the good things that have happened to them daily and just focus on those. I haven't got around to start doing that, but at least sometimes I do memorize them in my head. But I think writing down something has a lot of power. Like when you write it down, then you can look at it and just focus on that. Sometimes you think about these things and just like that, a certain thought will come into your mind and you feel a certain type of way. So yeah, writing down things and meditating on them is very good. And meditating on what God has given you, you'll find out that He's given you a lot more than you deserve, And here's some encouragement. If you've got like jealous people that have hurt you, you don't have to revenge, you can choose to look at the good. For me, Joseph's response still, should I say, kills me? Not like kills me, but like I'm like, wow, So he says, when the brothers were like, they were so scared of him. And they're like, oh, our father said before he died that he should forgive us. I just got read about it. It's so funny. And he's like he told them, do you think I'm good? I'm not in that place to revenge, And he tells them, even if you guys meant it for evil, the Lord meant it for good. And which good was he talking about? Not because he was going to become their leader, but the good of preserving a numerous people, in the times of the drought. So it shows how selfless he was. And I think this can help us too. We shouldn't just be focused on ourselves and cutting off bad energy. I mean, do cut it off if you need to. But if you can help someone, please do, right? And we shouldn't be discouraged if we continue to see imperfection in our thought life. It is evident that the Spirit is working in our lives, and we should remember that character development is not the work of a moment, but of a lifetime. That being said, I sign out. I don't know this will be this long, but thank you guys for tuning in with me. And if you've learned anything, or if there's anything you just want to add on or give maybe advice on how you dealt with jealousy, if I told you what, and if you've never been, hey, congs. But if you have and you've dealt with it and it's worked out for you, please leave a comment down below to help other people. Right, God bless. Bye.